The first time I thought my marriage was over, I was sitting in my service van across the street from a diner in Vancouver, Washington, watching my wife cry in another man's arms. Rain slid down the windshield in crooked lines. The wipers dragged back and forth with that tired rub sound I had been meaning to fix for months. My tool bag sat open on the passenger seat, and my phone buzzed in the cup holder. "Dad, can you get milk?" It was from Mason, our 10-year-old. I looked from the message back to Claire. She stood under the diner awning with a man I had never seen before. Tall, gray at the temples, dark coat. He touched her shoulder gently. She covered her mouth, started crying, then leaned into him. Not a quick hug, not polite. She held on like he was the only solid thing left in the world. I didn't get out. I didn't honk. I just sat there with my hand on the key, feeling something inside me go quiet. Not angry. Colder than anger. I remember thinking I had spent 12 years building a home, and maybe I had only been holding the door open for someone else. I'm an elevator mechanic. Most days, I work in machine rooms that smell like oil, dust, and warm brakes. People push a button and expect the doors to open. They don't see the cables, rollers, relays, and sensors that have to cooperate so a stranger can get to the 9th floor without thinking about it. Claire and I lived in a narrow blue house on the east side of Portland, with a maple tree out front and a front step that dipped to the left. Claire worked nights as a nurse at a rehabilitation center. She came home at 6:30 with her hair pulled back, sneakers squeaking softly on the kitchen tile, and tiredness sitting in her face. I'd be filling my travel mug. Mason would still be asleep upstairs, one foot usually hanging off his bed. Most mornings, we met in the overlap. She'd drop her keys in the ceramic bowl by the back door. I'd slide coffee toward her. She'd wrap both hands around it and say, "You are the only man in Oregon who understands the exact amount of cream." "That's why you married me," I'd say. "For the coffee and the dental insurance." She would smile without opening her eyes. Then Claire got quiet in a different way. At first, it was nothing I could name. A call on the back porch after dinner. Her screen turning face down when I came in. A pause before answering simple questions, like she had to step over something inside herself to reach me. "How was work?" "Long." "Everything okay?" "Just a difficult patient." She was a nurse. Difficult patients were normal. Exhaustion was normal. Silence, sometimes, was mercy. I told myself that because I wanted to believe it. My father left when I was 8. He didn't slam a door or make a speech. He kissed my mother on the forehead one morning, told me to watch the lawn because the mower belt was slipping, and never came back. So when Claire grew distant, some old part of me woke up and started counting exits. The first thing I found was a receipt. It was Saturday morning, and the washing machine was thumping because Mason had left something heavy in his sweatshirt. I was moving Claire's clothes from the hamper when I felt paper in her jacket pocket. A receipt from a small motel diner outside Vancouver. 2 coffees. 1 slice of apple pie, paid in cash. Time-stamped 1:17 a.m. on a night Claire had told me she was covering an extra shift. I stood in the laundry room with the dryer humming against my hip and detergent thick in the air. Maybe the receipt belonged to a coworker. Maybe Claire had stopped after work. Maybe waitresses wrote notes like that to everyone. Maybe I was tired. Maybe my father had broken something in me that had no business touching my marriage. I folded the receipt along its old crease and put it back. That evening, Claire cut an apple for Mason while he read a book about volcanoes. "Did you know lava can move faster than a person can run?" he asked. "Then I will not race lava," Claire said. I watched the knife move cleanly through the apple. Her left thumb pressed the slices into a fan the way she always did for him. "How was that double shift the other night?" I asked. Her hand paused for less than a second. "Hard," she said. "We had a patient who wouldn't settle. Everybody was stretched thin. Over the next few weeks, I became a man I did not like. I noticed everything." Claire stepped onto the porch for calls and came back with red eyes. She withdrew cash from our joint account 3 times and labeled it family expenses, which was so vague it felt almost insulting. She said she had extra shifts, but when I checked the public coverage board for the rehab center, her name wasn't there. I told myself I wasn't spying. Then I did one more thing a man who wasn't spying wouldn't do. Her phone lit up on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs helping Mason find clean socks. DR just 2 letters. The preview said, "Not until I have the rest." I stared until the screen went black. A minute later, Claire came down, saw me near the counter, and slipped the phone into her scrub pocket without reading it. "You okay?" she asked. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because the room had turned upside down. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." That became our house. 2 tired people saying they were fine. Mason felt it first. One morning, he spilled cereal across the table and started crying like the bowl had been holding him together. Claire reached for a towel. I reached too. Our hands touched over the mess, and both of us pulled back. Mason looked from her to me. "Is Mom mad at you?" Claire's face changed. "No, baby." "No," I said. "We're just busy." He nodded the way children nod when adults give them answers too thin to stand on. At night, I lay beside Claire and listened to her breathe. Sometimes, she turned toward me in her sleep and rested a hand on my back. I held still, pretending to be asleep, because I didn't know whether I wanted her to keep touching me or stop. One Thursday, after finishing a service call downtown, I drove past the rehab center at 11. I told myself it was the faster route home. Her car wasn't in the lot. I parked across the street for 7 minutes, watching rain blur the streetlights. I hated myself for every second. The next time she said she had picked up an extra shift, I followed her. I did not plan to. That is what I told myself then. Maybe part of it was true. She left at 8:40 wearing jeans, a gray sweater, and the green raincoat Mason said made her look like a park ranger. Nurses don't wear jeans to night shifts. She kissed Mason on the head and said she'd be back late. I waited 3 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys. Claire drove across the river to an old church converted into a community center. The sign out front advertised grief groups, food pantry hours, and a Saturday woodworking class. She parked under a cedar tree. I stopped half a block away behind a delivery truck. A dark sedan pulled in 10 minutes later. The man from the diner got out. I had not known jealousy could feel so much like fear. They didn't go inside. They sat in his car. 40 minutes passed. I ate half of a gas station sandwich I couldn't taste. When Claire finally got out, he handed her a brown envelope. She held it against her chest with both arms, like it was fragile or dangerous. He touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I drove home by a longer route because I didn't trust myself to arrive before her. She came in after midnight, thinking I was asleep on the couch. Through half-closed eyes, I watched her place the brown inside her nursing bag. She stood there with one hand over her mouth. Then she whispered something I could not hear. The next morning, after she fell asleep on the sofa still wearing her hospital socks, I found the envelope in the laundry room drawer where we kept batteries, tape, and takeout menus. The drawer stuck like it always did. I had to lift it to get it past the warped track. My hands were shaking before I touched anything. There are lines decent people do not cross. I crossed one. Inside was an old photograph of my father. Not exactly the father from my childhood, but close enough that my stomach turned before my mind caught up. He was younger, maybe early 30s, standing beside a woman I didn't know. There was a baby in her arms. I sat down on the laundry room floor. There was also a copy of a birth certificate name. Daniel Ross Thather. Thomas Mercer, my father. A hotel invoice, old and yellowed at the edges. A sealed letter with my name on it. And a note in Claire's handwriting, don't tell him until Daniel brings the rest. For a while, I could not make the pieces stay in one shape. Daniel. DR the man at the diner. The motel receipt. My father's photograph. Claire's lies, the first thought that made sense was not the true one. It was the cruelest one. Claire had known something about my father. Something she kept from me. Something involving this man. Maybe she had been meeting him for months. Maybe there were parts of her life I had never been allowed to see. Maybe the affair was wrapped around some old family secret so twisted I couldn't name it. I put everything back exactly as I found it. Claire stirred on the sofa. Her face was turned toward the cushion, one hand tucked under her cheek. She looked exhausted and younger than 41. There was a line from the pillow across her forehead. I wanted to wake her and demand the truth. Instead, I closed the drawer and stood in the blue light of the microwave clock until my legs felt numb. The confrontation came on another rainy evening. Because Portland has a way of adding water to anything already drowning. Claire said she needed to go see Lena. Lena, her sister, was in Seattle that week. I knew because Mason had shown me a picture of her at Pike Place Market holding a paper cup of soup. Claire stood by the back door with her purse over her shoulder, keys in hand. I was at the kitchen table. Mason was upstairs, supposed to be brushing his teeth. Is his name Daniel? I asked. Claire went still. It wasn't much. She didn't gasp or drop her keys. She simply stopped moving. In that silence, my heart filled in the worst answer. Ivan, she said. Is that his name? Her eyes flicked toward the stairs. Not here. That hurt more than denial would have. I stood. So there's a here for this conversation and a not here. You don't understand. No, I said. I really don't. I don't understand the motel receipt. I don't understand the cash. I don't understand the calls on the porch. I don't understand why your car wasn't at work when you said you were working. And I don't understand why some man is handing you envelopes in parking lots. You went through my things? I did. My voice sounded strange, flat, and I'm not proud of it. But I'm not going to pretend I found nothing. She put her purse down slowly, like sudden movement might break the room. I was trying to protect you, she said. That sentence did something ugly inside me. Don't. It's true. No, you don't get to dress this up as protection. You lied to me. You looked me in the face in our kitchen and lied. Her eyes filled. I didn't know how to tell you. Tell me what, that you're seeing him? That my father is somehow mixed up in whatever this is? That you decided I was too fragile for the truth? Her mouth trembled. My father walked out of my life without a word, I said. You know what silence does to me, I know. Then why would you use it? She gripped the back of a chair. Because I was scared of me, of what it would do to you. I shook my head. That's convenient. It's not. No, Claire, it is. Because now you get to be the good person suffering quietly while I'm the angry husband who can't handle whatever truth you decided belongs to everyone but me. She flinched. I reached for my wedding ring before I knew I was doing it. I didn't throw it. I didn't slam it down. I placed it on the kitchen table between us. Claire looked at it like I had cut something living. From the stairs, Mason's voice came small and frightened. Are you leaving us? Claire turned. I closed my eyes. Mason stood halfway down, holding the plastic dinosaur he had owned since kindergarten. He was too old for it now, but not that night. No, Claire said quickly. No, honey. But she was crying, and I was standing with my ring on the table, so the lie couldn't reach him. I picked the ring back up. Hurting Claire was one thing. Letting Mason think love could be set down and left there was another. I'm going for a drive, I said. Claire whispered, Evan, please. I walked past her. The next morning, I called in sick and drove back to the community center. He saw me and stopped. You're Evan, he said. The sound of my name in his mouth made me want to hit him. Not because of anything he had done yet, but because he had said it like he had practiced. Do you love my wife? I asked. Daniel blinked. Then his expression changed. Not guilt, not arrogance. Sadness. No, he said. God, no. I almost didn't know what to do with that. Then what the hell is this? He looked toward the building, then back at me. She was the only person who would listen when I didn't know how to knock on your door. I said nothing. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. I was going to give this to Claire today, he said. She said it had to come from me eventually. She was right. I don't want anything from you. I know. But he held it out anyway. My name was on the front, Evan. The handwriting hit me harder than Daniel's face had. Slanted letters, heavy pressure on the downstrokes. I knew it from one birthday card my mother kept in a kitchen drawer for reasons I never understood. My father's handwriting. I opened the envelope with my thumb. He wrote that he had failed 2 sons. 2. He wrote that Daniel was born 3 years after he left my mother and me. He wrote that he had tried, briefly and badly, to become a better man with Daniel's mother, then left them too when Daniel was 4. He wrote that cowardice can look like starting over if you do not look too closely. I had to stop reading. Daniel's voice came from far away. He died in August. Liver failure. I hadn't seen him in years. A lawyer contacted me about a box he left. There was a letter for me and one for you. I found your name, then your address, then Claire's number through a fundraiser page. You called my wife. I didn't want to show up at your house, he said. I figured that would be cruel, so I called her. I told her who I was. She didn't believe me at first. I wouldn't have either. The motel, the diner, the receipt. You were staying in Vancouver, I said. He nodded. Cheapest place I could find while I sorted through his storage unit. Claire met me at the diner next door. She paid for coffee because I had been driving all night. The waitress wrote that note because I kept crying into apple pie like an idiot. Relief moved through me, but it didn't come clean. It dragged shame with it. She should have told me, I said. Yes, Daniel said. She said you deserve the truth, he continued. She also said this truth had a hook in it. She wanted to be sure before she put it in your hands. I looked down at the letter my father had written. I do not ask forgiveness. I lost the right to ask anything. But you have a brother, and if there is one decent thing I can still do, maybe it is to make sure neither of you remains a secret. A brother. Daniel looked older now. Not because his face changed, but because I had stopped casting him in the role I needed him to play. She loves you, he said. I almost told him not to talk about my wife. But the anger had lost its sharpest edge, and underneath it was something severe. I thought you were taking her from me, I said. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I thought I was bringing you a ghost. Neither of us said anything for a while. I drove to the Willamette River instead of going home. I sat there with my father's letter open on the steering wheel and read it 3 times. It did not fix anything. My father being sorry did not give my mother back the years she spent counting bills at the kitchen table. It did not give me back the school play where I searched the crowd for a face that never appeared. It did not give me back the birthdays where every passing truck sounded like possibility. A dead man's regret is still mostly useful to the dead, but the letter did something else. It opened a locked room in my head and showed me another person had been inside it too. Daniel had waited at windows. Daniel had listened for tires in the driveway. Daniel had probably learned, like I did, that boys can grow up around an absence until the absence has its own chair at dinner. My phone showed 5 missed calls from Claire. I didn't call back yet. I thought about the night before. The look on her face when I placed my ring on the table. Mason's voice from the stairs. I had been hurt. I still was. Claire had lied, and no noble reason made that disappear. But I had not asked to understand. I had asked like a man already standing in the ruins, looking for someone to blame for the fire. Years earlier, when I lost a promotion to a guy who played golf with the regional manager, I came home furious. saying I would never be more than the man who fixed what other people broke. Claire had put her hands on my face and said, "You don't have to earn your place in this house." At the time, I smiled and kissed her. Now I realized I had never fully believed her. I was always earning, always proving, always waiting for the hidden calculation that would show I had come up short. When my father left, he did not just walk out the door. He left me with a measuring tape I had been wrapping around myself ever since. I stopped at the grocery store on the way home because Mason had asked for milk. And even in the middle of a family crisis, children still need cereal. When I got home, the house was quiet except for the low murmur of the television. Mason was asleep on the sofa under a blanket, one hand still clutching a Lego piece. Claire sat at the kitchen table with both hands around a mug she hadn't drunk from. She looked like she had been waiting for a verdict. I put the milk in the refrigerator. I hung my jacket on the chair because I missed the hook by the door. I noticed those tiny things because the large ones were too hard to touch. Then I sat across from her. "I met Daniel," I said. Claire closed her eyes. For a moment, neither of us moved. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know what he is." Her eyes opened. "Evan. I know he's my brother." The word sounded strange in our kitchen. It moved among the cabinets, the school calendar, the bowl of bananas, and settled somewhere it did not yet belong. Claire's face crumpled, but she kept herself still. "I should have told you." "Yes, I wanted to be certain. I know." And then I got scared. "I know that too." Her fingers turned the mug slowly. "I thought if I could gather everything first, if I could understand what was true, I could hand it to you in a way that didn't destroy you." "You don't get to decide that alone," I said. She nodded. Tears slipped down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. "I know, I thought you were having an affair." She breathed in like the words physically hurt. "I hate that I thought it," I said. "But I did. I watched you lie. I watched you leave. I saw him touch your hand. I found receipts and envelopes and notes that said not to tell me. I went somewhere ugly with it, Claire. I made the road," she said softly. "That was when I had to look away, because I didn't want her to take all of it. I wanted to stay angry enough that forgiveness would be simple later. A clean transaction, but marriage is rarely clean. It is two people leaving fingerprints on the same wound. I crossed lines too," I said. "I followed you. I went through your things. You were scared, so were you." We sat with that. The refrigerator clicked on. Mason shifted on the sofa and mumbled in his sleep. Claire looked toward him. "He asked me this morning if dads can stop being dads. That broke me more than the letter had. I put my face in my hands. After a while, I said, no more protecting me with silence. No more. If something can hurt me, I need to be in the room for it." She nodded. "And Daniel," I said, "if I meet him again, it's not through you, not in secret, not in parking lots." "Of course." I looked at her then, really looked. She was still my wife. Not because the last weeks hadn't happened, but because I could see her inside them now. Frightened, wrong, loving me badly in an attempt to love me well. "I don't know how to feel about him," I said. "You don't have to know tonight. I don't know how to feel about my father. You don't have to know that tonight either. And us?" Her mouth trembled. "I hope we don't have to know everything tonight." That was the first honest answer either of us had given in days. We talked until almost dawn, when the sky began to lighten. Mason wandered in with his hair sticking up and asked if there was cereal. Claire looked at me. I looked at the refrigerator. "I got milk," I said. Mason nodded like this was proof the universe still worked. A week later, we met Daniel at a park near the river. Claire came with me but stayed back near the walking path, holding 2 coffees and not offering either until nobody's hands were shaking too badly. Daniel sat on a damp bench with a small metal box beside him. It was the kind used for Christmas cookies once and screws forever after. The lid had faded poinsettias on it. I sat at the other end of the bench. For a while we watched a little girl in a yellow raincoat kick a soccer ball badly while her father pretended every shot was professional. Daniel opened the box. Inside was a watch with a cracked leather band, a folded road map, 3 photographs, and 2 birthdays still sealed in envelopes. One had my name, one had his. "He never mailed them," Daniel said. "That sounds like him." He smiled a little, not because it was funny. I picked up the watch. I remembered it. My father wore it when I was small. I used to press the side of my face to his wrist when he carried me from the car to bed, listening to the tick. "I'm not here to ask for anything," Daniel said. "Not money, not family dinners, not forgiveness on his behalf. I just spent most of my life feeling like a footnote. And when I found out about you, I thought maybe you felt the same shape of hole." I kept my eyes on the watch. "Did he leave you too?" I asked. Daniel nodded. The answer should not have helped. But it did. Not because I wanted him hurt. Because for the first time, my father's leaving felt less like a verdict passed on me personally, and more like the pattern of a man who did not know how to stay anywhere. Daniel looked across the grass. "I used to think if I found the right words, he would explain it in a way that made sense." "Did he?" "No." I let out a breath. "Mine didn't either." We sat there, two grown men with gray in our beards, holding the leftovers of a father who had made boys wait until middle age to meet. Claire walked over after a while and handed us coffee without saying anything. She touched my shoulder once, then stepped away again. I looked up at her. Daniel and I did not hug that day. We did not promise to become brothers in the way movies understand the word. We exchanged numbers. We stood awkwardly. He told me he was staying in town until Friday. I told him Mason liked woodworking and would probably ask him 80 questions if they ever met. Daniel said, I can handle 80. Maybe not 90. Months have passed since then. Claire and I see a counselor every other Wednesday in an office above a bakery that makes the whole building smell like cinnamon. We are learning the difference between privacy and secrecy, between protecting someone and excluding them, between asking a question and staging a trial. I am learning that fear can wear the mask of certainty. Claire is learning that silence is not always kindness. Mason knows Daniel now as Uncle Dan, a title he invented before any adult was ready for it. Daniel comes by sometimes on Sundays. He and Mason built a wooden model bridge at our kitchen table, sanding pieces down over newspaper, while Claire made soup and I pretended not to watch too closely from the sink. I have not forgiven my father. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I will not. I no longer think forgiveness is a bill that comes due just because someone dies. Some debts remain unpaid. Some letters arrive too late to earn an answer. But Daniel is not my father's debt. He is a man who carries a version of the same empty space. Last Tuesday, I was working on an old elevator in a downtown building, the kind with brass doors polished by 100 hands a day. The motor room smelled like hot dust and machine oil. I had grease on my knuckles and a flashlight clenched between my teeth when my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Pasta tonight. Don't forget bread. Below it was a picture of Mason and Daniel at our kitchen table. Mason was holding up two crooked pieces of the model bridge, grinning like an engineer. Daniel was laughing. In the corner of the photo, Claire's hand was visible, setting down a bowl. I stood there longer than I needed to. The elevator doors opened below me with a clean mechanical sigh. For years I thought love meant making sure no one had a reason to leave. Then I thought truth meant forcing every door open before someone could lock me out. I was wrong both times. Some doors open because you repair what is broken. Some open because someone finally knocks. Some open into rooms you are not ready to see, but you step through anyway because the people on the other side are still worth meeting. I wiped my hand on a rag and typed back with my thumb. I'm coming home.